Good morning, I'm Dennis Chant, the outgoing President of Passionfruit Australia. So welcome here today to our field day at University of Queensland. It's part of our communications project and most importantly the successful contractor for our new breeding project, which is the most important investment that we currently have in the passionfruit industry. So firstly this morning we'll have a presentation from the breeding team, and then we'll have the opportunity to go out into the field and to look at the work that they've done in the field. Welcome, that's right, we're having this video for some archive footage of all the wonderful things that we're going to do under the new communications project. So this is the first field day that we've had under the new communications project that was just led by Hort Innovation in September this year. So that goes for 5 years. We completed the previous one, which was a 3-year project, in August this year. So it has been extended to 5 years, which really gives us a chance to plan ahead. So the deliverables per annum are very much similar to what we had under the previous project. And you would have seen the first quarterly newsletter under this project went out about a month ago, I think, Hannah, wasn't it? So I do encourage you all to open Hannah's very information-rich emails that she sends through to not just to our members, but all levy payers and everybody that's on our database. And this is the first of our 2 annual field days. So I very much like to thank UQ and DPI for hosting us here. And I think it would be good to follow up when there's some fruit on the vines, but to see where they're at now, and then maybe in 6-8 months' time, maybe we do another one. So
absolutely.
Just to sort of recap on where the industry is going, production, we had a really good bump up in last year, and it seems to be sustained this year. We don't have the dollar figures as yet. 23, you can see we reached a fairly good high. I think that's a average per kilo price. Not sure what the trend is this year, but I think what seems to be happening is in the north, the further north you go, the more and more activity is. Those of us that are in the Tweed Valley will know that it's been a very challenging time for purple growers, and probably Sunshine Coast as well. But I think I think Hort Innovation is going to start looking at regional figures in the future. So I think that will be pretty useful when we get a bit of a feel for what's happening in individual regions. At the moment, we really only get anecdotal advice from our contributors to our magazine and our stats on what it is. But I think the evidence is that production is very much moving further north, and varieties, the right variety is still a challenge. So which makes it so important, what the work that's going on here today. I just wanted to touch over the last couple of years we've been liaising with industry in relation to the proposed modification to the levy regime to accommodate the biosecurity levies. So there was a paper in the last e-newsletter. So again, I encourage you to look at that, as well as the information that we've provided over the years. So what we're effectively looking at, taking 5 cents off the 20 cents for the marketing levy, to go towards the biosecurity levies, the 2 of which we were talking about previously. 3 cents of that will be allocated towards paying for the biosecurity response, and that's debt that the industry's incurred with the federal government as part of the response to the varroa mite and other various incursions. It will probably, at 3 cents a box, it'll probably take 2 to 3 years to pay off that debt to the government, which is around about 35 to 40,000. The idea is then that 3 cents will go back into the marketing levy. The other 2 cents is for ongoing biosecurity activities for the industry, and that will remain as a permanent biosecurity levy. We're virtually at the stage where we've drafted a levy proposal. That's what's gone out in the newsletter. There will be, once we've got feedback from the Federal Department of DAF that they're comfortable with it, we will formally send it out to all levy payers. And then there's an objection period, so I think it's 60 days that it's out there. It gives any levy payer an opportunity to respond to the proposal. Prior to then submitting it to the Minister, we need to address any of the concerns that might be raised during that objection period. So, again, I encourage you to look at the last e-newsletter, and you will get an email hopefully in the next month or two once the department has signed off on the proposal.
Dr. Patrick Mason, and I'm a breeder on the National Passionfruit breeding program, which is run by Dr. Mo. Where are you, Mo? There he is. So I'm sort of going to handle going over what we've been doing for the last, 12 months, but also since we started in 2023. Oh, and just one thing, a big thank you to the organising committee for holding it here. We did want to have it here for some time to show you what we're doing, and a big thank you to Hort Innovation for funding it as well, and obviously the levy payers. So an industry overview, very brief. I mean, all of you know the issues with the passion fruit industry, but I mean, whilst it's not an Australian species, it's a very distinctly and culturally Australian crop with pavlova and drinks and all that sort of stuff. And moving into this current era with nutrition, it's rich in great nutrients and bioactive compounds, so it has medicinal potential. This is now wrong since Dennis's update in terms of the current decline or stagnation of the industry, but even then I think there's still great opportunities and the need for new varieties moving forward. It'll allow the industry to pivot when new issues arise. And in terms of genetic diversity, at the end of the day, you're still limited to crossing programs that have occurred maybe back in the 70s. And a lot of the stuff that you're using right now is derived from that. And so very limited genetic diversity, so this can create issues in terms of diseases and other things. And so there is an urgent need for a consistent pipeline of new varieties, and that's what we're responsible for here at DPI and QAFI and UQ. So breeding objectives, there's two main things here. We're thinking about obviously the growers, and I'd say we have a pretty good lines of communication with you guys as to what you need. But we also have to be thinking about consumers. As Brad will say, we need to get a passion fruit that tastes like passion fruit. That's about it. But we need to think about it from sort of a marketability perspective as well. Like, how does it look as well, which is a major issue. And consistency as well. You can't have a plant that produces great fruit one day and then the next day it's not so good, or it's producing different sized fruit as well. And for you guys too, you want your stronger, more reliable vines. You might want to make sure that it's compatible with Pandora, which is what everyone's basically using. And disease resistance is also a key issue. There's thinking about blind tipping, which maybe isn't an issue with current new varieties that are coming through. A bit of cold tolerance for relevant areas as well. So here are some of the steps, or the key steps in our breeding program. So it really started I think Mo acquired the funding in 2022, but really the work started in 2023. And he had a hell of a job acquiring germplasm. It was very difficult to get it or get any germplasm off the previous breeding program. And so we started from scratch. So he brought germplasm in from overseas, from a lot of great farmers who were really helpful to him, acquiring that germplasm, and also speaking to farmers as well as to what they think looks good. And that really informs how you want to conduct your crosses and which ones to cross with. And I would say that the information that Mo's acquired and some of the information that he acquired from himself was quite successful, and that's been pushed into our progeny evaluation. So he's done his crossing, moving to progeny evaluation. So we plan all that progeny out at sort of a progeny or a seedling plantation, and then we select the best ones from that. And from there, we move to multi-location trials. So it's one thing seeing a seedling do well. The next thing is actually looking at it in a sort of commercial or a semi-commercial setup where it's growing in a normal setup where the vines are able to grow together and we're not constantly having to separate them and roll them together. But also those multi-location trials, they're on farmers' properties. So they're going to see these varieties and be able to tell us, no, this isn't good, we're not interested, go with something else. And so that's where we really start to get the feedback from farmers. And then from there, once we see varieties that look pretty good, so these multi-location trials, they're done on a limited number of farmers' properties. So usually 4 or 5 is generally what we plan to do. But then from there, if we find good varieties in that, then we move to grower-led evaluation, which is, we'll give them a small allotment of plants, maybe 5 to 10 plants, and they can do a small strip planting. And that's for everyone. And we can provide you those plants free of charge if you're keen on any of the varieties that we have and develop. So to start things off, we created a progeny plantation this year of around 700 accessions at 4 different sites, at Woombye, here at the MRF, Yandina, whoops, I've said Woombye twice, and Brad Millard's place. There you go, I almost forgot you, Brad, my apologies. So as I said, we've planned out 700 accessions, and we've had a good look at them, and we've actually put anything that was fruiting, we've pulled off the tree, and we've had Son and a few of our other students and workers. They've actually gone through and phenotyped all of these fruits. They've gone through and they've looked at fruit size, bricks measurements, skin thickness, pulp recovery, all the good stuff that you want to see from fruit quality, and as you can see here, I mean, you can look at these, some of the fruit that we've picked off the vines. There was one core family that had about 200 to 300 accessions derived from it. So there's 2 parents, and we had about 300 seedlings derived from this particular cross combination. And it was really, really interesting. We saw enormous diversity in the type of fruit that we're getting off each seedling. So 3 of these, so this one, and this one, you can see this, they're quite different. This one's yellow, but they're actually from the same parent. So, and you might think, okay, what's the point of growing a yellow? No one wants yellow, but it's really good. When you see lots of variation, that's fantastic. You want variation because you're going to get a whole lot of garbage. You're going to get a whole lot of middling stuff, which no farmer really wants. But you know what you're going to get? You're going to get a couple that are going to be right on this upper band that are going to be most likely commercially successful. And that's exactly what we've seen. So we've seen like clear selection gains from this progeny trial. And so here's an example of one of our top selections that we found. It's not an overly big fruit, but for a purple, I think it's a good size. And I guess you guys can give some feedback on that as well. It seems to be a strong vine, but it's hard to say. It's probably a bit too early to say. It needs to be planted out in a commercial situation. It's got an extremely high pulp recovery, well over 50%. Really beautiful colour, really good eating. And so we've got a couple of varieties like this, and we're really excited to push them out to those multi-location trials on farmers' properties to get a really good look at it, to see how commercially viable it actually is. And so from those 700 accessions, we've got 20 elite accessions that have been selected. And so we've got a bunch of trials ready to plant out. So we've got all the plants are ready, they've been grafted with help from Brad and Megan and Dave from Arbor Grove. And we'll be planting them out at all of those different farms. Next slide. Just taking a step back to where we started. When Mo started in 2023, he found it very difficult to find or get any of the material from the previous breeding program, but he was successful in getting a couple of varieties from that. That's PF102 and PF110. So these are derived from the previous breeding program, which happened, I think it was, before we've had this one. So I think it was from 2017, I believe. And so Mo's had a look at these varieties and it's thought, okay, well, these ones actually look pretty good from the germplasm he's collected. And so we decided to add these to our sort of first generation stage multi-location trials. And so this PF102, PF110, and we've pitted them against the old legacy variety Sweetheart and Missy Gem, which, as you guys know, isn't much good these days. But then we've also included a sort of a newer variety, which a lot of farmers are planting out these days, which is Sensation, which has been quite successful. And so we've planted these trials out at Woombai, here, Bundaberg, at Ross Brindley's farm, and northern New South Wales at the Constable farm. And so, again, it's important to get an understanding of how these particular varieties behave at different sites, and if they might be good at one site, they might not be good at other sites. And yeah, really confirm how they behave in a commercial setup. And what we've seen, and this is something that I really wanted to drive home today, is that these varieties, they look pretty good. They have their caveats, but we would be willing to offer some plants to people to try, or farmers to trial on their property. So PF102 has very strong yields at most sites, and the fruit quality is good, but obviously not a perfect vine. And PF110, we've seen it does seem to perform pretty well in northern New South Wales, although it does have some caveats. So we do want to see, we've only had them in for one season, and we want to see them for the second season to see how stable that production is before potential scaling up and release to open release for farmers to use. So here's the first variety profile. I know it's a bit of a busy slide, but this is PF102. It's got strong performance attributes at most sites that we've seen, so it's definitely the best producer. So it does outproduce everything else, including BFT, and it does eat pretty well throughout the season as well. It doesn't have the issues where at certain times of the season you might get high acidity, and it's the consumer obviously won't like that. And so just to point to some of the attributes that are quite interesting, comparing it to a standard commercial variety, it's slightly bigger, but not huge. The pulp content's quite good, i.e. pulp recovery. It's around 50%, so again, it's quite strong. The Brix is middling, but it still eats well. The acidity's a bit lower, and the pulp weight per fruit is significantly higher than everything else. And the key attribute here that really stands out is the fruit yield. It's a great yielder, and it yields, its yield window is very long as well, so you're going to be producing for a longer part of the year. Some of the cons, the fruit colour, it eats well, as I said, but the fruit colour doesn't look great. And again, we don't know how heavily it's affected by disease as well, so that's why we need these long strip plantations and farmers to really have a look at them to see how they can manage those things if possible. So yeah, I'd say the fruit colour is probably one of the key things, but it still does look okay, but that's not a good example of it. That's still on the vine, and I stupidly didn't have any good photos of this, which is not a great advertisement, but for next time we'll actually bring some fruit in at the next field day for you all to try, and you can really gauge for yourself whether or not you'd be interested in using this variety. The next one is PF110. Now, it's quite variable from site to site, but we did see strong performance attributes in northern New South Wales at the Constable farm. So it had a really nice purple colour, and the pulp recovery is higher than everything else, and the fruit weight was actually bigger than everything else in northern New South Wales as well, and the fruit yield still not as good as PF102, but it's still better than, say, stuff. It's slightly higher than BFT or Sensation, and the Brix score again is still in that normal range as well. Some of the cons and the constables have told me that Phytophthora, and we've seen in the field, is they saw some Phytophthora damage last year, which I mean is to be expected. There was very heavy rainfall, and so it would be interesting to see how it will behave this year if the rainfall is not as heavy. And one other thing is the lower yielder than PF102 as well across all sites. So next step, as I said before, we're keen, if you guys think it's any good, is to release these varieties by around 2027. But in the meantime, if any of you farmers are keen to have a look at it at your farm, we can just get a field trial agreement off you, which is pretty simple. I'll just send you the document, you can sign it, and we can give you some plants for free to trial on your property. And it can be either one, it can be both or just one, whichever one you like. And at the end of the day, you know, this is the tail end. I mean, these two varieties are sort of at the tail end of what a breeding project is all about, and that's where you guys get involved, the farmers. This is where we really get your input as to what's good and what isn't, because at the end of the day, I can say something's great, but that's pointless. You know, you guys need to want to grow it, and you guys know how to grow these better than I do. That's just a fact. Next steps. I'm sort of bouncing around a little bit here. So I've just spoken about those previous two varieties that were derived from the previous breeding program. Now I'm talking about the varieties that we've just recently developed in the 2024-2025 progeny planting. And so these are to be trialled at 5 different sites. So we have the Constable Farm in Dalgwegan. We have Woombai, Keith Paxton's farm, which has been planted. Beenham Valley, Brad's farm, and South Colin, Quinton Springham. And even potentially WA, there's a couple of farmers that might be interested over there to trial them there. But yeah, it's quite exciting. This is our own material, and we've got a few really good accessions that look quite good. So yeah, excited to see how this next season pans out for these varieties. So next steps in terms of additional progeny or breeding program. So we've done progeny plantings for this previous season. We're going to do another one this season as well. So we're going to do another 700 progeny plantings. And so as you drove in this morning, you may have seen a strange dual trellis block out the front. So that's to allow us to plant them in relatively high density, so we can evaluate more. That's in the A block. And we'll be doing selections much like last year based on acidity, bricks, taste, fruit size, etc. So we'll really be focusing around fruit quality. And then we'll select another 20 to 30 accessions for our 3rd generation multi-location trial. So yeah, just to finishing up, I just want to give some acknowledgements and just introduce you to the team. We have Dr. Mo, the star of the show. He's sort of making sure, I know that some of you may not have seen him around much, but he's a very busy man. But he's really driven how the project and the direction and how the project's gone. And his direction, I think, has been quite successful so far. So kudos to him. And he started from nothing, and he's built up quite a strong breeding program in 2 years, which is quite impressive. We have Sun, one of our PhD students. So she's doing some more highfalutin stuff in using genomics and genomic prediction, which basically allows you to use genetics to basically determine whether or not a plant's going to be a high yield or a high quality plant without even having to plant the thing. You can just have it in a pot, take some DNA and say, yeah, that one will have big fruit, that one will be tasty, high bricks, whatever. She's going to be working on that in the coming years. But on top of that work, she's actually done an enormous amount of work on our breeding program. So she's, for this current progeny planting, she's done crossing for 80 different cross combinations. So all of that seed is derived from the work that she's done, and she spent weeks and weeks and weeks doing that. So she's done a great job. She's also done a lot of data collection as well on our multi-location trials. We also have Pragya, who is from the macadamia space, but she's got real breeding chops. So she knows how this world works, and so she's going to be a really valuable asset to our team moving forward. And then we have some PhD students that are based in Brisbane and in WA actually. So we have Emma, so she's here today. And so she's working on sort of consumer preference stuff. And one of the key things she's going to be able to do with our new varieties is actually get tasting panels in of expert tasters to taste our new varieties. Because that's one of the things, you might see something that looks good and tastes good, or you might think that it tastes good, but you're only one person. Having an expert panel coming in and actually tasting, that's really solid information, and you really do need that at this stage, and we can have far more confidence in the varieties that we're producing. So she's going to be doing a lot of work on that. She's doing some other stuff as well, but I think for our breeding program, I think that's a really great lift-off point for our new varieties. Then we have Kushbu. She's doing a lot of genomics in the passion fruit space as well, and that's going to help us with our breeding program moving forward. And in terms of academic support, we have Dr. Heather Smythe. So she's one of the supervisors of IMAS, and so that's her lab that will be doing all the panel tastings in. So she's going to be running all of that, and that's the type of support that UQ is offering, and that's a project that's actually also funded by Hort Innovation. So it's not levy funded; it's funded by other streams, but that's just a great thing that Mo's been able to negotiate for the passion fruit breeding project to be a part of. It gives us a far better advantage of producing really, really high quality fruit. And then we have Professor Rajiv Vajni. He's based over in WA, but he's doing all that genomics work. He's basically sequencing and developing all these resources for us, basically free of charge. It's not costing the project anything. And that's also part of a different Hort Innovation project. And then also we've got Professor Bruce Topp, who's based here, macadamia breeder, but his fundamental knowledge of breeding has been invaluable for the breeding program as well, and his advice. Obviously the farmers, the Paxtons, the Millards, Constables, Ross Brindley, Jim Gordon, and then some of the new people, Quinton Springham, Vernon, and Jim Walker. Nurseries, Arbor Grove, they've been really helpful, and Jim and Hannah as well at Benham Valley doing the grafting for us. So a massive thank you to all of you. Obviously, we're in the breeding field and we are somewhat removed from all the farmers. Your feedback would be greatly appreciated. If you have an issue with something, please let me know. At the end of the day, you guys are setting the direction on what you want us to breed for. And so any feedback you can give me and give us is absolute gold. Thank you very much. Welcome to S3 block, which is where our sort of initial plantings for passion fruit are. You might see some strange and quite, I'd say, unkept passion fruit in these two rows. The reason we plant them in these sort of dual trellis setups is we can plant more plants closer together and maximise the amount of space we use. It's quite expensive to hire land here at the DPI. So again, it's trying to maximise how many plants we get planted out here. So these first two rows, that's germplasm. That's stuff that Mo collected right at the beginning of the project. And a lot of this stuff he's used for crossing to produce our current progeny. This second set of rows, this is our first progeny planting. And so there's about 60 plants in each row. So we've got basically have it set up as two rows, and we have them looped over onto the other side. So they're very, very densely planted. Too densely, might I add. It was an absolute nightmare keeping them maintained, and we won't do that again. We'll probably maintain them maybe slightly more dense than that, and that'll be a little bit easier to maintain. But as you can see, it's not a setup that's conducive to a commercial setup. So all you're really doing is looking at fruit quality. That's it. You're not going to see, you might see a bit of vigor traits coming through, but at a fundamental level, you're looking at the fruit quality here, and that's what we've done. One of the varieties in here, we did, I've got it tagged down here. It's nothing, you're going to look at it and you're going to see it doesn't look great, but it produced some good fruit. And we did select it as one of our, not full elite selections, but one of our sort of secondary elite selections that we want to have a second look at when it's being grafted. So it's this one over here, and this will sort of give you an idea of what we're working with when we're selecting. So it looks terrible. It looks terrible right now, but the fruit quality on it was really good. And again, when we plant it in a normal setup where it's got plenty of light, plenty of space, it's not competing with plants on either side, how will that confer over to productivity traits? And that's sort of the second step, and that's where farmers come in with the multi-location trials. So yeah, so we'll move on to Other work we're doing, which is a multi-location trial that we actually have planted here, our first generation multi-location trial. And I want to show you the PF110 and PF102. So you might be a bit concerned about the way we have this set up. Now, that's a miscommunication on my behalf. I was meant to let these ones grow out into each other, but the habit of our workers is to keep everything separate. So they've kept all these ones separate as well. So I have told them that you can just let them grow into each other. So just as a comparator, this is Misty Gem. Look, we don't take care of our plants as good as you farmers will. So these are going to be knocked around a bit. And so if you are seeing some issues with these, i.e. disease, or maybe they're not growing as quick as you would expect these varieties to grow, that's probably a fault on our behalf, but it's still a good comparison. It's a like-for-like comparison with our other varieties, and I would say that our two varieties did quite well this year. So like I said, this is Misty Gem. I'm not going to go up there, but there's Sweetheart up there as well. It's quite a similar situation. They didn't produce a whole lot here last year, but our other varieties did. So we'll walk to the next row now, which has PF110, BFT, and PF102 for you guys to have a look at. So, this variety here is AS21. Like I said, we haven't let them grow into each other, but you can have a good look at the fruit on this one. You can see they're a decent sized fruit. It's a purple type of a fruit. You can see it's put a few fruit on, and there's a fair few flowers on as well. So it'll be putting on more, and we'll see how much it produces before Christmas. So this is AE16 or PF102. This is the really high yielder. Interestingly enough, it hasn't put on much fruit as yet, but later in the year, like I said, it's going to start putting on a lot of fruit, more than anything else. Like I said, it's the highest yielder that we've seen out of any of the varieties that we've checked, including a lot of the new ones and the old. And you can see it's starting to put flower on now. I think, so here's an example of a fruit here too, if you want to go look at it. It's a relatively large fruit, but like I said, it produces a lot of these, and it's quite consistent in the size that it produces as well. So this is PF102. This is actually derived from the previous iteration of the breeding program. So they didn't actually release any varieties, but they did have a couple of elite sessions that could potentially be released. And so we've added these to our trial here at the MRF and a number of other sites. And it's been quite a good yielder, and it's got good fruit quality traits as well. The one caveat is that the fruit doesn't look like a perfect red or purple colour, but eating wise it's very consistent across the entire season, and like I said, its production window is very long as well, and it out yields everything else in terms of fruit production and fruit weight as well. So it's got a lot of things going for it from a commercial perspective, but like we said, we're very keen to have more farmers involved in trialling this variety and our other variety as well, in seeing if it is a commercially viable prospect for them. So this variety here is PF110. We've also trialled this variety at a number of different sites alongside PF102, and at a lot of the sites it doesn't do very well, or it produces fruit of middling quality, but further down south in the colder conditions, say in northern New South Wales, it's done quite well. It produces a really nice deep purple fruit of a decent size with very high pulp recovery. And so we think that maybe this variety is not so good for further north, although it should still be trialled. But down south in northern New South Wales, I think it is a great prospect. Yep. So yeah, that's basically all I have to show to you today. As you're walking out, you might see a few strange looking vines. That's not Passiflora adulis, that's a different species, but Mo wanted to include them just in our germplasm collection for potential future work. So yeah, thank you very much. Feel free to look around. Yeah, thank you very much. So if any farmers that didn't come today would like to trial these two elite sessions, please reach out to us, and we can provide you some plants free of charge as long as we enter into a field trial agreement, and then yeah, we can see how well these plants do on your property, because as we said, these plants will behave very differently on a farm to farm basis.